The data collection from the various sources is the next topic to look at. It's one of the important activities and the most essential stages in carrying on any research or solving any business problem. The data collection is an extremely challenging work. This needs an exhaustive planning. So before we begin the field work, we need to sit and make an exhaustive plan, what all things to be done. And we need to know the details. So we have to fully understand and determine the capacity. We need a determination and capacity to complete the assignment effectively. So there has to be a full determination in doing this job. The data collection activity begins with figuring out what sort of data is needed, followed by the collection of a sample from a certain selection of population. Some different situations require different types of data, and these different types of data are collected through various means. So we can see multiple ways of doing this activities. So it's one of the example which talks about the identifying the customer knowledge, creating the customer knowledge database. So it can be done through web and social media. You can look according to products and services. You can create a prospect list, force capability, competition, market trends, marketing and profile data, contact history, customer database, sales order transactions, surveys and results. So these are various things we need to first sit and decide what all types of data we need to collect. One of the applications where the data collecting is done. So we just usually this for images and all that. So the collecting methods may be surveying method, maybe using satellite image, maybe using cartographic study, maybe photogrammetric method, or any existing written information, other information. So this cartographic study may further be divided into digitization of maps and plans, which can be represented in the form of vectors or raster. Same way we can be having digital maps. Then existing written information may be in the form of registered data or maybe other data and so on. As we have seen, the two types of data primarily we have, one is qualitative data, other is quantitative. So when it comes to collecting the qualitative data, various methods we can use is go for in-depth interviews, you can go for online forums, you can create groups and make groups to interact and have discussions, web survey chat, online communities. All these are possible to collect the qualitative data. On the other hand, quantitative data can be collected through face-to-face interaction, maybe by an online, on phone, by mail, and so on. Data sources, basically there are two types, so primary and secondary. Primary data can be collected through questionnaires, surveys, whereas secondary data may be collected from books, published, journals, reports, internet, newspapers, articles, and so on. So primary data can be through web analytics, can be through survey, listening labs, whereas secondary data can be through published articles, blogs, white papers, and so on. The major difference between primary and secondary data is in the pipeline. The primary data, we first create the hypothesis for our problem, and then accordingly using our hypothesis, data is collected and then visualized. Whereas in the secondary pipeline, first data is collected and then according to our requirement, hypothesis is formed. Whereas there is a hybrid version, so where data is created and this created data is subjected to hypothesis test, and through this data is collected and used for visualization. Yeah, the primary and secondary sources. The primary source is the one where the data are created to solve the particular problem we are trying to solve. That's a data is collected to solve the problem at hand, and this data may be qualitative or may be quantitative, whereas secondary data is one which was somebody else's primary data. That means somebody else was collecting this data to solve their own problem, so they have already collected the data, so the data is available with them. We just borrow that data and use it for our purpose. So that's a secondary data. Same way, secondary also can be qualitative data or quantitative data. So the primary side, if you come out, the qualitative data of the primary can be collected through open-ended, informal, unstructured interviews, or can be open-ended questionnaires, or we can have participant observations and so on. So here the qualitative data for solving our problem can be collected through interviews. So interviews usually, when it comes to qualitative data, it will be open-ended. That means only questions are asked, answers are expected from the other end. Therefore, whatever answers are given, we just record it either in the form of text or audio, video, or many other versions. So usually it will be an informal way of interview, or it also you can call it unstructured interviews. So here nothing is formal, so the questions are formed on ad hoc basis. As and when need arises, appropriate questions are asked and the answers were recorded. The other way is open-ended questionnaires. That means this is a bit structured one where questionnaires are prepared. So when we are interviewing multiple people and we are expecting the data for particular situations from everyone, then it is better to create questionnaires and move around the organization, meet all the people, interview with them with these questionnaires, so that we can just aggregate all the answers and come out with a overall picture. Or it can also be through participant observation. So we can observe the situation and collect the qualitative data, and here the one who is collecting the data is part of the group, so is participating and then observing. So through observation we can get the data we require. The other side, the primary data, which is quantitative, that means which can be measured. So can be collected through experiments. So when we can't build any analytical model for the problem at hand, then the best way is to conduct an experiment on that and then decide which of the methods is better and all that. Then we have social surveys, so we can make surveys. So the difference between interview and survey is done over a large public, whereas interview is done on a finite number of people. So usually we will have structured questionnaires while collecting the quantitative data, and the interviews will be formal, or mostly it will be structured. That means the questions asked during interviews are closed, not open-ended. That means specific questions are asked and these questions are structured. That means the questions are prepared before the interview begins, so that for everyone who is interviewed will be asked the same questions or same set of questions for the answers, and all the answers are aggregated at the end. And usually this is a non-participant observation. On the other side, secondary data, qualitative data can be made available through mass media and other sources, and quantitative data may be made available through mass media, official statistics, like government agencies, or there are some private agencies who keep collecting the data on various issues, and they will be made available for whoever requests them, maybe on payment or by on free. So they are available. So many such sources are available, the secondary. So it can be newspaper, it can be social media. We have official statistics. For example, if we are interested in knowing if you are making any experiment on, or if you are making any study on the road accidents and all, then we don't need to just make a survey on the road and identify and all that. So you can just approach the appropriate government agency like traffic police department, and they will supply us all the accident details and all that. So that way this, if we are talking about COVID problems, yeah, we can approach the health department. They will provide us all the details required. You don't have to run around collecting and all that. So that's advantage of working with secondary data and all that.